I sat in a worn leather chair, the heat of the summer evening doing little to thaw the chill that had settled in my bones. In my hands, the familiar weight of my custom-built rifle served as a tangible link to reality. A reminder that the horrors I faced were not just figments of a weary mind. The werewolves of the north were gone, their reign of terror ended by silver and strategy, but the victory was a hollow one. The faces of those I couldn't save haunted me, their eyes accusing, their whispers a constant murmur in the back of my mind. I set the rifle down and reached for the bottle of whiskey on the table, its contents a temporary balm for a soul scarred by too many battles. The liquid burned its way down, a fleeting warmth in the oppressive summer air. The swamp outside was a world away from the frozen north, a humid, breathing labyrinth of water and decay. And within its depths lurked a new nightmare, a creature that had dragged more than one unsuspecting soul into its murky embrace. The locals had their tales, whispers of a beast that was part man, part monster, all terror. They spoke of it in hushed tones, a mixture of fear and reverence. It was more than just a predator. It was a dark deity in a pantheon of rural superstitions. I took another sip of whiskey, feeling the edges of reality blur just slightly. This hunt would be different. The swamp was an alien terrain, its secrets veiled in mist and shadow. But the monster within was as real as any I had faced before. I stood up, my joints protesting the movement. The cabin was a refuge, but it was also a cage, a barrier between me and the creature that needed to be hunted. The swamp awaited, its heavy air and unseen eyes a challenge to my resolve. The night outside was a wall of sound and heat, a stark reminder that I was in the monster's domain now. But I was a monster hunter, and no shadow, no matter how deep, could deter me from my path. Stepping outside, I let the door close behind me with a soft click, the sound a final note in the symphony of my departure. The hunt was on, and I would face whatever horrors the swamp held in its heart. I was ready. The wave of humid air that greeted me as I stepped into the swamp town felt like walking into a wet blanket. The sun, a glaring orb in the sky, bore down with an intensity that seemed to warp the air itself. The town, a haphazard collection of sun-bleached buildings, lay draped in a lethargy that mirrored the slow, meandering flow of the swamp it bordered. The main street was almost deserted, the townsfolk seemingly driven indoors by the oppressive heat. Their brief, furtive glances from behind curtained windows spoke volumes of the unease that hung over the town like a shroud. Seeking some relief from the heat and hoping to glean information, I pushed open the door of a diner that looked like it had seen better days. The cool blast of air from inside was a brief sanctuary. The diner was sparsely populated. A few locals scattered across booths, their conversations hushing as I made my way to the counter. The waitress, a woman with lines of hardship etched into her face, gave me a guarded look. "What can I get for you?" she asked, her tone polite but reserved. "Something cold," I replied, deciding against coffee in this sweltering heat. "And maybe some local insight." She raised an eyebrow slightly, pouring a glass of iced tea with methodical slowness. "Insight's a bit harder to come by than tea around these parts," she said, sliding the glass towards me. I took a sip of the tea, the sweet chill of it providing a momentary respite. "I'm here about the disappearances," I said, keeping my voice low. The waitress glanced around the diner before leaning in slightly. "People here don't take kindly to strangers poking around. You might find the swamp more talkative than the town." Finishing the tea, I left some bills on the counter and stood up, feeling the heavy gaze of the few patrons on me. The swamp, with its dense foliage and hidden depths, loomed just beyond the town's edge, a silent witness to the secrets it held. As I stepped back into the heat, I knew the real work was about to begin. The swamp held the answers, and I was determined to unearth them, whatever it took. The edge of the swamp was a place where the world seemed to change, where the orderly lines of the town gave way to the chaotic tangle of nature in its most untamed form. The air here was thick, laden with the scent of mud and decay. the perfume of a place forgotten by time and shunned by the sun. The ground underfoot was spongy, the earth saturated with the waters that seeped sluggishly through the swamp. Trees rose high, their roots twisting and writhing out of the muck as if trying to escape the swamp's grasp. The canopy above was a patchwork of leaves, so dense in places that it cast the swamp floor into a perpetual twilight. As I ventured further in, the sounds of the town faded away, replaced by the symphony of the swamp. The croak of frogs, the subtle splash of something unseen moving through the water, the occasional eerie call of a bird hidden in the foliage. It was a place that felt alive, watching and breathing around me. I paused, taking out my notebook and pen. In the dim light, I jotted down my observations, the clues that nature herself offered. The pattern of the undergrowth, disturbed in places by something large moving through. The marks on the trees, deep cuts made by sharp claws. After surveying the area, I made my way back to the outskirts of the town, to the weathered houses that fringed the swamp. The residents here were those who lived in closest proximity to the mire and its secrets. Knocking on doors, I was met with wariness. The people here were hardened by their environment, their faces etched with the lines of lives lived in the shadow of the swamp. They spoke of the disappearances, each story adding to the legend that shrouded the swamp. They talked of the swamp monster in whispers, a creature of scales and teeth. Each tale was different. Some spoke of a beast that walked like a man, others of a serpent that slithered through the water with terrifying speed. I thanked the locals for their time. As the sun began to set, casting long golden rays across the swamp, I stood at its edge once more. The waters were still, the trees silent observers. The swamp held its secrets close, but I was determined to uncover them. The swamp, in the burgeoning light of dawn, was a world reborn. Yet it retained its inherent mystery, a landscape where every shadow seemed imbued with the potential for secrets untold. The air was fresher now, tinged with the scent of wet earth and burgeoning life, a deceptive veneer over the danger that lurked beneath. I ventured deeper into the swamp's embrace, guided by the sun's hesitant rays filtering through the dense canopy. My boots sank into the soft, muddied ground, leaving deep impressions that were the only evidence of my passage. Around me, the swamp was alive with the sounds of unseen creatures, a cacophony of calls and responses that underscored the teeming life hidden within this verdant prison. The clues I sought were subtle, easily missed by those not attuned to the language of the wild. A broken branch here, a displaced stone there. Signs of passage that whispered of the creature's existence. The locals' tales had painted a picture of a monster, but the swamp itself told a different story, one of survival and territory. My path led me to a clearing, a rare break in the relentless claustrophobia of the swamp. The ground was dotted with pools of water, clear and still, mirrors to the sky above. It was here that I found them, tracks, unmistakable in their size and shape, imprinted in the soft mud at the water's edge. They were fresh, no more than a day old, leading from one pool to the next, a path that spoke of a creature both cautious and curious. I knelt by the tracks, examining them closely. Each one was a testament to the creature's existence, the depth indicating its size and the spacing its gait. My examination was interrupted by a sound, a low, guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the very earth. I rose slowly, my senses heightened, every instinct screaming of the proximity of the swamp monster. And then silence, a suffocating, expectant quiet that pressed in from all sides. I waited, barely daring to breathe, but the creature did not reveal itself. Instead, the swamp returned to its usual chorus of sounds, as if the moment of tension had been nothing but a figment of my imagination. With the tracks as my guide, I followed, tracing the path of the creature through the swamp. The journey was arduous, the swamp reluctant to give up its secrets. Yet with each step, I delved deeper into the heart of the legend that had captivated the town for generations. The day waned as I continued my search, the light dimming beneath the canopy until the swamp was once again a realm of shadows. It was in this twilight that I found it, a place where the water ran deeper, where the trees seemed to draw back in reverence or fear. The air here was cooler, the silence more profound, as if the swamp itself held its breath. And there, amidst the ancient roots and still waters, I found evidence of the creature's existence beyond mere tracks. Remnants of meals, scales that glittered like jewels in the dying light, and, most telling of all, a pattern of wear on the trees that spoke of a creature that had passed this way not just once, but countless times. As evening draped its velvet cloak over the swamp, the air thickened, charged with the anticipation of the nocturnal chorus soon to awaken. My journey deeper into the heart of the swamp was marked by the subtle shift in the atmosphere, a tense tension between the seen and the unseen. Here, the boundaries blurred, and the swamp revealed its dual nature, both sanctuary and tomb. Navigating through the dense underbrush, I came upon an area where the trees parted to reveal the skeletal remains of an old shack, its dilapidated structure barely clinging to coherence. The wood, weathered by time and the swamp's relentless damp, groaned with the memory of its former life. This forgotten relic, hidden away in the swamp's embrace, whispered tales of isolation and despair. Approaching the shack, the ground beneath my feet became spongier, the waterlogged earth seeping through the cracks in my boots. The doorway, if it could still be called that, offered no resistance, hanging loosely on its hinges. Inside, the air was cool and musty, heavy with the scent of mold and decay. What little light filtered in through the cracks in the walls played tricks on my eyes, casting elongated shadows that danced just beyond the edge of vision. The interior was sparse, the remnants of habitation long since reclaimed by the swamp. A rusted bed frame, a table overturned, its surface marred by rot. But it was the floor that caught my attention, particularly a spot where the boards seemed less worn, less surrendered to the elements. Kneeling, I brushed aside layers of detritus, revealing a trapdoor almost completely camouflaged by years of neglect. The hinges protested as I pried the trapdoor open, revealing a darkness that felt ancient, untouched by the light for decades. A ladder descended into the gloom, its rungs slick with moisture. The air that rose from the depths was cooler still, laced with the tang of stagnant water. Below, the space opened into a cellar of sorts, though any original purpose was now obscured by the swamp's encroachment. The water here was knee-deep, clear, but for the silt that clouded around my steps. In the beam of my flashlight, I saw them. Artifacts of a life once lived here, now surrendered to the swamp. A lantern, its glass fogged and cracked. A book, its pages swollen and warped. A photograph, the faces blurred beyond recognition by water damage. And then, something more. A collection of objects that seemed out of place in this watery grave. Bones, small and delicate, arranged with intention in the mud. Nearby, scales that shimmered with an iridescent sheen, scattered amongst the remnants of what appeared to be remains of bodies. Emerging from the cellar, I stood once more in the shack, the fading light casting long shadows through the broken windows. The swamp around me was alive with sounds, a nocturnal symphony that spoke of a world teeming with unseen life. The night deepened, and with it came a sense of urgency. The swamp by night transformed into a realm both eerily tranquil and vibrating with latent perils. My trek back towards the town's outskirts was guided by the silver luminescence of the moon, casting long serpentine shadows across the murky waters. The air, heavy with the musk of decay and fresh bloom, was alive with the nocturnal symphony of the swamp's residents, each cry, croak, and rustle, a testament to the vibrant ecosystem thriving in the darkness. As I navigated the treacherous terrain, the stillness of the night was suddenly shattered by a distressing sound. A cry, unmistakably human, laced with terror and pain, emanating from deeper within the swamp. My instincts, honed by countless encounters with the unknown, propelled me towards the source, every sense alert. The underbrush grew denser, a thicket of shadows and secrets as I advanced. The cry sounded again, closer now, a desperate plea that quickened my pace. Emerging into a clearing bathed in moonlight, I was confronted with a scene of palpable dread. A figure, a local by the look of his attire, was ensnared in the swamp's grasp, mired in a pool of muck that seemed to draw him deeper with every futile struggle. His eyes, wide with panic, met mine as I approached, his voice now reduced to ragged gasps. Without hesitation, I extended the branch I had seized along the way, urging him to grasp it. "Hold on!" I commanded, my voice cutting through the night's oppressive silence. The rescue was arduous, the swamp reluctant to relinquish its claim, but determination and human resolve prevailed, pulling the man free from the watery snare. Once on firmer ground, his breaths came in labored heaves, each one a battle. It was here," he gasped between breaths, his eyes darting fearfully around the clearing. "The beast, it was watching me." I surveyed the surroundings, the serene beauty of the clearing belying the recent struggle. "Tell me everything," I urged, keen to understand the circumstances that led to his perilous situation and to ascertain whether the creature had indeed revealed itself. His tale was a tapestry of curiosity and recklessness, a venture into the swamp lured by the thrill of the hunt, only to find himself the hunted. He spoke of glowing eyes that watched from the darkness. As I escorted him back towards the safety of the town, the encounter weighed heavily on my mind. Returning to the edge of town under the cloak of night, the man's gratitude was evident, though he remained shaken by the ordeal. "You saved my life," he murmured. A newfound respect for the swamp's mysteries etched into his weary features. I watched him retreat into the embrace of the town, the lights of which seemed to ward off the encroaching darkness of the swamp. Alone once more, I turned my gaze back to the mire, its secrets veiled beneath the nocturnal shroud. The following morning dawned with a heavy, oppressive air, the kind that preludes storms. My first destination was the town library, a modest building at the edge of the main square, its facade worn by time and the relentless southern sun. Its interior was a haven of quiet, the air redolent with the scent of old paper and wood polish. Here, amidst the dust motes dancing in slivers of light, lay the collective memory of the town and perhaps the key to understanding the swamp's legacy of fear. The librarian, a woman of indeterminate age with sharp eyes and an economy of movement, regarded me with a mix of curiosity and caution as I approached the desk. "I'm researching local history," I explained, "particularly folklore and legends surrounding the swamp." Her expression softened slightly at my request. "You'll want the archives then," she said, gesturing towards a door at the back of the library. "Most don't bother with the old tales anymore, but there's wisdom in those stories for those willing to look." The archives were a repository of the past, shelves groaning under the weight of bound newspapers, personal diaries, and various tomes of local lore. I spent hours poring over the materials, the librarian occasionally passing by with another stack of documents she deemed relevant. The tales were varied and many, but a common thread wove through them all. A creature of the swamp, as much a part of the land as the trees and the water. After reading all that I could, I left the library as the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of fire and blood. The swamp called to me, its mysteries now framed within the context of generations of conflict. The late afternoon sun filtered through the dense canopy, casting a kaleidoscope of light and shadow across the swamp's verdant floor. Armed with the insights gleaned from the town's historical archives and the Naturalist's Journal, I ventured once again into the heart of the swamp with a new plan. Choosing the site was intuitive, guided by the subtle cues and whispers of the swamp itself. I found a clearing, a natural amphitheater surrounded by ancient cypresses, their gnarled roots knitting the water's edge into a complex tapestry. The area felt alive, thrumming with the energy of countless cycles of life and death, a fitting stage for the encounter I sought. Preparation was minimal, but deliberate. From my pack, I retrieved a small, sealed container of bait, a mixture of local fish and other organic matter I had collected, hoping its scent would carry on the still, humid air. The offering was an acknowledgement of the creature's role as the apex predator of this environment. With the bait set near the water's edge, I retreated to a position where I could observe without intruding, blending into the shadows cast by the setting sun. The wait began. a test of patience and resolve under the oppressive blanket of the swamp's atmosphere. Time passed in a slow, languid dance, the fading light playing tricks on my eyes. The sounds of the swamp seemed to grow louder, a symphony of life that filled the air with its complex harmony. Insects buzzed, frogs croaked, and somewhere in the distance, an alligator's low rumble added a bass line to the swamp's chorus. But then, a shift in the pattern of the sounds, a silence that spread like ripples on water, a pause in the swamp's breath. My heart quickened, my senses heightened in anticipation. The stillness of the swamp was a deceptive prelude to chaos. I had ventured deep into the mire's heart, where the air hung heavy with anticipation, as if the swamp itself awaited the impending clash. This was the lair of the beast, a creature that had claimed lives with ruthless efficiency, a true monster in every sense of the word. As the murky waters whispered secrets of the untold horrors that lay beneath, I moved with purpose, my every sense attuned to the slightest disturbance. The swamp was a maze, a treacherous domain where every step could be one's last. I was an intruder here, a fact the swamp seemed keen to impress upon me with its oppressive atmosphere and the constant, unseen threats lurking just out of sight. Suddenly, without warning, the water before me exploded into violence. The beast, a towering mass of scales, teeth, and primordial fury, launched itself from the depths, its eyes, burning with a malevolent intelligence, fixed upon me as it roared a challenge that echoed through the swamp like a thunderclap. Instinct took over. I raised my rifle, the weapon's familiar weight a small comfort against the nightmare before me. The beast charged, its massive form cutting through the water with terrifying speed. I fired, the report of the gun shattering the eerie calm. The bullet struck true, tearing through the creature's hide and eliciting a roar of pain and rage. But the beast was undeterred. It surged forward, a leviathan of the swamp, intent on my destruction. I fired again and again, each shot a desperate bid to slow its advance. The air was filled with the stench of gunpowder and blood, a tangible reminder of the battle's ferocity. The creature was relentless, each attack a testament to its power and resilience. Its movements were a blur, a dance of death honed through eons of survival in the swamp's unforgiving embrace. I dodged and weaved, firing whenever I found an opening, but the beast's hide was thick, and my bullets seemed only to fuel its fury. Our battle was a tempest, a clash of wills that turned the swamp into a battleground. The creature lashed out with razor-sharp claws, each swipe a deadly arc that I narrowly avoided. I could feel its breath, hot and fetid, as it snapped at me with jaws that could crush bone. In a moment of clarity, amidst the chaos, I realized the fight was far from over. The beast, despite its injuries, was far from defeated. It was a monster of the swamp, a part of this world in a way I could never be, and it would not fall easily. With a final, defiant roar, the beast retreated into the murky waters, its form disappearing beneath the surface. I stood alone, my heart pounding, my body aching from the exertion. The fight was not over. The beast was merely biding its time, retreating into the depths of its domain to recover. The swamp settled back into a deceptive peace, but I remained vigilant, my rifle at the ready. The beast had emerged, and the swamp had borne witness to our battle. But this was only the beginning. The true end, for either the beast or me, lay just beyond the horizon, in the uncharted waters of the swamp's darkest recesses. I prepared to move deeper into the swamp, into the unknown. The beast lurked in the shadows, waiting, but I was undeterred. The hunt was far from over, and I would see it through to its bitter end. The swamp had never felt more alive, nor more hostile, as I pressed deeper into the beast's domain. Each step was a declaration of war against the primordial muck that sought to claim me, just as it had claimed countless others. The air was thick, a tangible curtain of moisture that clung to my skin, making every breath an effort. The only light was the dim glow of my flashlight, piercing the darkness like a lone star in an otherwise void sky. The beast's trail was not difficult to follow. Drops of dark blood, stark against the green and brown palette of the swamp, marked its passage. The The creature was wounded, but far from defeated. Its retreat a strategic maneuver rather than a surrender. I moved with deliberate caution, aware that the roles of hunter and hunted could shift with but a moment's notice. As I ventured further, the swamp began to change. The trees grew denser, their trunks gnarled and twisted, as if deformed by the weight of the secrets they bore. The water beneath my feet stirred with unseen life, each ripple a reminder of the countless eyes that watched from the shadows. Then I heard it. A low, guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the very earth itself. The sound was primal, a voice from an age when giants roamed the earth, and it froze me in my tracks. Ahead, the darkness seemed to coalesce into a solid form, and from that impenetrable blackness, the beast emerged. It was a nightmare made flesh, its scales shimmering with a malevolent light, its eyes burning coals of hatred and pain. The wound I had inflicted was evident, an angry slash that marred its side, but it did nothing to diminish the creature's ferocity. If anything, it seemed to amplify it, lending the beast an aura of desperation and untold power. The space between us was a battlefield, the air charged with the electricity of imminent death. The beast moved first, a blur of motion that belied its size. I raised my rifle, firing in a rapid succession that echoed like thunder through the swamp. The bullets found their mark, but the beast was relentless, undeterred by the pain. It charged, and I dove to the side, feeling the rush of air as its massive body passed where I had stood. The ground shook with its movements, each step a testament to its incredible strength. I scrambled to my feet, firing again, each shot a beacon of light in the overwhelming darkness. The beast roared, a sound that vibrated through my very bones, and launched itself at me with renewed vigor. Its jaws snapped inches from my face, a near miss that sent adrenaline coursing through my veins. I rolled away, feeling the wet muck of the swamp against my skin, and came up firing. The beast was cunning, using its knowledge of the terrain to its advantage, disappearing into the water only to reemerge from unexpected angles. But I was driven, fueled by a determination that bordered on obsession. The climax of our battle was a moment suspended in time, the world reduced to the space between us. I fired my last bullet, and the beast leaped, a final, desperate gamble. The bullet struck true, piercing the creature's open maw and finding its heart. The beast's momentum carried it forward, its massive body crashing to the ground mere feet from where I stood, its lifeblood seeping into the swamp. For a long moment, there was silence, a profound stillness that enveloped the swamp. I approached the fallen creature, my flashlight illuminating its form. In death, the beast was magnificent, a testament to the raw power of nature, untamed and unforgiving. The beast was dead, but the swamp lived on, eternal and enigmatic, a world unto itself. The swamp at dawn was a sight few had the privilege to witness. A misty realm slowly awakening under the soft glow of the morning sun. The battle with the beast had left its mark on the silent, murky waters, a final ripple in the otherwise undisturbed landscape. The creature that had once ruled this domain lay defeated, its reign ended by the hands of a hunter. I stood for a moment longer, surveying the scene. The swamp was peaceful now, its waters still, the dense foliage absorbing every sound. The confrontation had been intense, a true test of skill and will, but it was over. The swamp's monster, a legend that had terrorized the town for generations, was no more. With the beast dispatched, there was nothing left to hold me here. I turned my back on the swamp, its secrets and shadows now just another chapter in my long career. The weight of the rifle in my hand was a familiar comfort, a reminder of the life I had chosen, or perhaps the life that had chosen me. As I made my way back to the town, the early morning light filtered through the trees, casting long shadows on the ground. My job here was done, the beast was dead, and the town was safe. That was all that mattered. Before leaving for good, I stopped at a small general store on the town's outskirts. The bell above the door jingled softly as I entered, the sound strangely loud in the quiet morning. The store was empty except for the owner, who looked up in surprise at my early visit. "Just passing through," I said by way of greeting, picking up some water and some food for the road. The owner nodded. There was a moment, a brief flicker of curiosity in his eyes, but he said nothing. In towns like these, the arrival and departure of strangers, especially those with a reputation like mine, were best left unremarked upon. Stepping back outside, I took a deep breath. The air fresh and clear. The town, with its fears and legends, would recover. They always did. As for me, the road ahead was long, with many more monsters to hunt, more shadows to chase. I climbed into my truck, the engine coming to life with a familiar rumble. As I drove away, leaving the town and the swamp behind, I felt a sense of closure. The beast was dead, but the hunt never ends.